Hello, my dear friends, basic greetings from Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine. My name is Viktor Fursov, I'm a research entomologist, I'm beekeeper and teacher. I'm just owner of this channel about insects, about entomology, the science about insects. I'm studying small parasitic wasps. To be correct, they're here on this poster, they're very tiny, from 0.2 millimeters up to maybe 10 millimeters, and they're parasitoids. They live inside the body of other arthropods or on the body of arthropods, and they're just developing and causing their death. That's why they're parasitoids, not parasites. And they're not predaceous, they're mostly parasitic, in contrast to carnivores and predaceous other type of insects. But they can be used successfully for very interesting purpose, for biological control. What I mean biological control? When you can use one type of organism against another type of organism in the nature. How you can use it? We can breed these organisms in the laboratory and put them to the nature or to agricultural environment to suppress the population of not very beneficial organisms like agricultural pests. So, for instance, some biological control used to suppress agricultural pests like caterpillars and night moths, which are feeding on cabbages, on agricultural crops, on maize, on different agricultural and crops and in orchards. So, for instance, some egg parasitoids of a genus Trichogramma are bred at the laboratory, and people making special biological control laboratories where they're breeding tiny parasitoid Trichogramma, which is very tiny, just like a tiny point on paper, 0.5 millimeters. They're bred in mass number, just in hundreds and thousands of thousands. And they're just used by spreading them in agricultural crops against some agricultural pests, against moths, because these parasitoids were developing inside the eggs of bugs, such as beetles and butterflies and some others. But mostly, if they are spread on agricultural crops, they can eat the larvae, they can eat eggs of some night moths and suppress their population below the economical level. But today we will be talking about parasitoids, about different insects. And first of all, I show you part of collection. And I will show you some different videos about insects. Not only about CHALCID wasps, about different insects. For instance, first of all, we should say about collection. Entomologists, they're studying collections. Entomologists collecting insects, spreading them just very carefully and put them just on pins, on special cardboard papers, glue them, put labels for identification in this type of a collection of carabid beetles. Carabid beetles are very famous because they're predaceous beetles. They have also a special role in control of different pests in agriculture. And these are Cicindelidae, very interesting ground beetles. They're very fast predators, so they're fastly moving and catching all other insects on their way. So they are also making kind of a biological control of another insects. But parasitoids were very tiny, and usually they used in the laboratory on very tiny microscopic slides, because their size is very small. Small as, for instance, the small of these tiny mites. Mites are very unpleasant, but they can be also in laboratory culture. Why they are not pleasant? Because if you are keeping insects at home at the laboratory, you have a different substrate for these insects. And sometimes these mites are feeding on substrate, on some piece of bread, on cereals, on flower. So this is a bread mite, Acaride. So they're not dangerous for humans in direct way, but they cause sometimes allergy because they have, you see, a lot of hairs, such spines. And here they're under microscope, under big magnification, just in a drop of water. They're alive, crawling around, but if you were just flying in the air, they can come to your breathing organs. So with these spines can be dangerous for allergy. So that's quite unpleasant. So you must keep laboratory culture as clean as possible to avoid these mites, because they're always feeding either on some vegetable material, on rotating materials, on vegetable materials, on cereals, on a flour, on corn, on dry grain, on some small pieces, on some remnants after feeding the same food contents for your insects in the laboratory. So on these remnants will be developing these type of mites, which are dangerous because they cause allergy. And after they're breeding, they're spreading everywhere around, and sometimes spreading like a dust in biological laboratory. So they can be dangerous for breathing and for causing the allergy. So be careful about them and clean your laboratory as much as possible to avoid them. Sometimes people say they're very common in the dust in the room, but if you don't have any food substrate for these mites, because they're flower mites, they're feeding especially on vegetable material. If you don't have them in the dining room, they're not breeding on something else in your room. So if you're cleaning, if you have vacuum cleaner, if you're making water cleaning in your room, you can avoid this type of mites forever, we can say. So don't worry about them. This is mostly laboratory culture just for educational purpose. But check your laboratory culture of insects to avoid them. And when we're talking about CHALCID wasps, today I show you this CHALCID wasp, which just rear it in my kitchen, because I have some plants, I have some plant material, and this insect just rear it from galls on plants after overwintering. And this insect belonging to CHALCID wasps. This is a subfamily Tetrastechinae and family Eulophidae. And so this is a female. And what she is doing, female, she's cleaning, she's grooming legs and antennae, cleaning the body, cleaning legs, using just special adaptative serrations on legs, on first pair of legs, on hind legs, for cleaning antennae, to avoid some dust, to avoid some very small dust on the body, for protection, for better flight. And this is very normal behavior, cleaning the body, especially for parasitic wasps and for flying insects. Because to groom the body, especially for flying parasitoids, is very important to clean antennae for identification where is the host, where is the mating partner, and to search for food and search for mating partner as well. And now I show you another insects. These insects are bread beetles. We said flower mites, but these are bread beetles. Bread beetles, Stegobium paniceum, very common bread beetle, which are widely spread globally all around the world. Where you can find them just occasionally in your kitchen, because you can bring them either from the supermarket, from flea market, or just they can come to your room, to your laboratory, to your kitchen, through the window, through a balcony, and search for some vegetable products, for cereals, for dry cakes, or just open packages with cereals, so they can penetrate inside, lay eggs, and they're invisible because their larvae developing inside food stock, inside dry bread inside, dry cakes. So larva is making special cocoon around her body and sitting inside this cocoon and feeding on this cocoon. And after emergence, we're making emergence holes and penetrating the package, and they're coming directly to the light and becoming visible. So big surprise, why the beetle are coming in my kitchen? They were coming just from some food which you forgot somewhere in your wardrobe, on some shelves in your kitchen. So if you forgot some bread, some cakes, beetles will find it. Beetles, if you forgot, but beetles will find it and will feed it for days, for months, gradually developing, and then will come in a warm temperature, just in mass, after mass rearing, or they just can come in the winter time, just little by little, in a few number. But fortunately, there are some small tiny parasitoids which are also living in your kitchen for sure, but they are pretty invisible because they are very small. They're CHALCID wasps. We're using their mandibles here. Their mandibles were making holes again for emergence, and this is mandibles of Pteromalida wasp. Here big eyes, big composed eyes, and this yellow antenna, and big mandibles which are just open and closed now. I can show you. You can see just special adaptation. It's like a seta on the first pair of leg for cleaning antenna, big horn on the leg, from the left part of the screen. This is a leg and a special horn on tibia, on piece of leg. And this parasitoid will come and attack, and then just make a hole for emergence. We're using this mouth organs, or just mandible, which are called mandibles. Very tiny parasitoids. They're still very small. They're not biting. They're not stinging. They're parasitic. They're using only their ovipositor for oviposition. How they do it, you can see just now. This tiny parasitoid is sitting on bread, but not on healthy bread, not on dry bread. Yes, on dry bread, but infested bread, because this bread was infested by this beetle, this bread beetle, as I showed you before. Beetles already did some emergence holes, but some larvae are still invisible by sitting inside these pieces of cereals. But parasitoid, this female, using her antennae for clicking and just crawling around, and became so dusty with some white spots. This is dust from flower, because female is crawling around, searching for host, searching for correct place to find the host larva inside the bread, inside cereals, and to make oviposition through this piece of bread or through a special hole. She's drilling with ovipositor the hole, and after drilling through the hole, penetrating the ovipositor like a small syringe inside the host, and attacking the host with ovipositor to lay egg inside the body of host, larva of beetle, larva of bread beetle, which I showed you before. Here you can see the head, rounded eyes on the left side, and two big antennae. So larva of beetle is invisible. I have some, but these larvae are visible because these are larvae of flies. It's a larvae of flies of a family Phoridae, predaceous and saprophagous flies of a family Phoridae. These larvae have no head, precisely identified head, but only the head part of the larva with special hooks. These hooks used for penetrating the food substrate for sucking, but head is absent. They're very active, and they just were eating on the body of dead larvae of honeybees. So if honeybees or some wasps larvae just dying, be sure that some flies will come from surrounded nature and attack them and will feed on this rotating substrate, which is very suitable for many different species of flies. So these forage flies are very happy to be fed on the body of larvae of honeybees. So they're making their important role for cleaning area after just dying of some organisms, some insects, and some other arthropods as well. And here I show you big parasitoids, quite a big parasitoids of a big size, and they're belonging not to CHALCID wasps but ICHNEUMONID wasps. ICHNEUMONID wasp, and they're pretty large, about 3-4 centimeters. Three different species, probably even one, because on the right side this is probably male, and with a big tail this is a female of ICHNEUMONID wasp. Also parasitic wasp, which are using the ovipositor for penetration inside the plant or wood to find the host somewhere inside the wood. So this female, just now in the center, is using so long very tail, but this is not a tail, but ovipositor for drilling the bark of tree, drilling the wood to search for larvae, maybe of some wood beetle like a WASPS beetle or horntail under the bark of tree, and to lay egg inside. On the left side another species with antennae with two white bands, and here you see another one without ovipositor but antennae black and with white bands. And this probably just a male of the same species. So they were collected just on the bark of a tree, because they were just crawling around on the bark of trees searching for their host. Host should be somewhere nearby, so they were very important for them to search for host, because female with this very long ovipositor is making hard job to drill the bark of tree for several minutes and lay eggs under the bark of tree. Again, the female does not sting, female doesn't bite, so despite so long ovipositor, she's absolutely helpless, so easy to touch it, but better don't touch it, because she's making her hard job to find another insect host and to develop inside the host. She's searching for host under the bark of tree. And these are tiny parasitoids. First one about 3 centimeters, but this one just about 7 millimeters. Very tiny, like a small seed. They're feeding on a drop of honey. These are females, CHALCID wasps, and they're not parasitic, they're phytophagous. Always, if you breed some insects, very important to give them some drops of honey or some drops of water, because they're alive, so they need to feed, they need to drink a little bit, so very important to keep them alive, so they will feed it very much with great desire, because they are hungry, they're thirsty, and even they're just fighting sometimes between them just for food and the water. These are tiny phytophagous wasps of a genus Megastigmus, of a family Megastigmidae, previously family Taurimidae. These tiny phytophagous wasps were developing inside seeds of dog rose, very common plant near your garden, or in your garden, in your orchard, in parks, in forest. Some shrubs are very big with a lot of fruits on them, which are overwintering just on branches of trees. Not many birds are feeding on the wild dog rose, so they're just drying on the branches of trees. But inside these fruits of dog rose there are a lot of seeds, and these seeds in many cases are infested with insects, with different insects, especially with these insects of the family Megastigmidae, genus Megastigmus. And again, these females are using this very special tail, which is named ovipositor, to penetrate still green young fruits of dog rose somewhere in May and June, and lay egg inside the fruits, inside the seed, to lay eggs, and the larva is developing and feeding on seeds of dog rose. You can collect these insects collecting fruits of dog rose in your area, in any countries of the world where you live in. It's quite interesting to see for different species in different countries, in America, in Africa, in Australia, in Asia, in Europe, to study the biodiversity of this genus. This genus was studied in Europe, was studied in Australia, but still, globally, it's quite difficult to collect many species in many countries. And you need to be a devoted entomologist to search for precisely for special group of insects, to find interesting material which can be identified, studied, and may be used for publication. And some new materials always can be found, new data about biology, new data about distribution, even some new species can be found. Even in this genus Megastigmus, there are a lot of to do to study material from different countries all around the world. If you can collect some fruits of dog rose, Latin named Rosa family Rosacea plant, keep it in jars, you can breed, you can rear these insects from seeds, and you can send them to our laboratory for study. Maybe they can be recognized as a new species for science. It will be great, very nice discovery for sure. So be careful about insects, study them, collect them, and if you have questions, you can always send some questions on my channel. I will answer to your questions with great pleasure. And if you can find some parasitoids or just phytophagous insects from plants of different families or from seeds of different families of plants, you can ask me about identification. If I can identify, I can identify. If I can ask help for another colleagues, my other colleagues can help you also in identification of some parasitic and phytophagous CHALCID wasp as well, and ICHNEUMONID wasp. So there is this group of specialists, taxonomists. This group is working in our department, in the Institute of Zoology of National Academy of Sciences. Our department is called Department of Taxonomy of Entomophagous Insects and Ecological Principles of Biological Control. So if you have questions about biological control, welcome to ask questions. Definitely in English, if you know English. Or if you don't know English, you can use translator, Google Translator, and write your questions in English. And you can find our department web page in internet to know which specialists on parasitic wasps are working in our department. I'm studying CHALCID wasp of a family Trichogrammatidae and some other families, and some other insects, some other parasitoids are studied in our department as well. CHALCID wasps, ICHNEUMONID wasps, Formicidae, predaceous insects. So, welcome to ask questions, welcome to make consulting, welcome to write your questions under this video, or you can send your private messages on my email. I show you just directly because some people are watching on telephone, easy to find, to see. My email, you fancy Gmail, this is my email for contacts. You can ask questions. If you have some troubles with insects, if you don't know what to do, maybe if you can clearly describe your problem, which insects are troubling you, which insects are appearing in your kitchen, in your house, or if you need to, you can send some samples for identification. We can make identification, and after that I can give you just precisely advice which insects do you have in your samples and what to do, how to get rid of them, or maybe you don't need to get rid of them if they came there just occasionally and they're not pests, or maybe they can be beneficial, as you understood. Some insects, some parasitic wasps, they are just, you can call beneficial because they are controlling some agricultural pests in a field, in a kitchen, in a supermarket, in a food store, in a forest, just near the river, stream, in a meadow, and so on. So if you have questions, welcome to write questions under this video. And don't forget about Patreon page for sponsors to drop a couple dollars for a cup of coffee. And don't hesitate to ask questions in private messages or directly, openly under this video in comments. Thank you very much for coming. See you soon on my channel to watch another streams which are coming very soon. Good luck and see you soon on my channel. Bye bye.